What if everything was perfect? Would we be content? Would we be happy? No, the fact is we wouldn't. We wouldn't. You see, we humans will abuse anything. We'll even abuse our motivations or emotions that God gives us. Things like sorrow, joy, anger, and so on. We just can't ever seem to leave well enough alone. The Bible opens with two very stark examples. God gave Adam and Eve the only paradise this world has ever known. He gave it to them to live in. It was perfect. But they wouldn't be content. They believed the lie that God was holding out on them. The forbidden tree would make them so much smarter. They would even know what God knows. Just eat and you will see. They ate, they saw. And thus, the first example of wanting is not always having was written. On your own, read Genesis chapter 4. You might even want to pause this and read it now. Cain and Abel had it made. Two brothers who were best friends. They grew up together, and they didn't have a lot of the stories that we put up with as children. No dad jokes. No stories about walking 10 miles each way to school uphill through 10-foot snowdrifts. None of that. The only thing missing were grandparents. But they really had it nice. They were the first of many, many children. But then friendly competition turned ugly. In Cain's heart, admiration for his brother turned to envy and then to jealousy. God even sat Cain down and told him to fight that dark cloud that was in his heart. But no, he gave in to the urge and killed his brother in a fit of rage. What's rage? What is that? You see, being upset is a tiny little fire. He threw the wood of resentment on it, and it became a bonfire of anger. That spread to the woods of his heart. And it grew until it became a forest fire. And then that engulfed the whole family. And the first death on this planet happened by murder. What does that look like in everyday life when we just can't be content with what we have? Well, people do as Cain did, as Eve did, and ignore what God said. What does God say? Let's just take one example of what God says. Remember that first busy Friday for Adam when he realized he was alone? He had surgery. He got married. Remember that? Remember what he said when God gave him Eve? I quote, "A man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh," end quote. Here's something you might have missed in the news. I've talked about Rayshard Books, the man who fell asleep in his car there in Atlanta, Georgia, sitting in the Wendy's drive-thru. Did you follow what happened immediately after his death? Maybe you missed this. His wife went on television to say what a great guy he was, fantastic husband, wonderful father, etc., etc. Then his girlfriend went next door and burned that Wendy's down in the business that was next to it. No, that comparison wasn't on the evening news. Somehow the channels missed that. It was over a week later and that news slipped out. Is this important to God? Well, why else would he have done the following? He put the story of Adam and Eve and the forbidden fruit in his Bible. He put the story of Cain and Abel in his Bible. Remember the 10th commandment? Yeah, we all know that one. Number 10, thou shalt not covet. And then he put this wonderful theme in his Bible. I'm just going to give you one scripture, which is this one in Proverbs, Proverbs 14, verse 30. A heart at peace gives life to the body. but envy rots the bones. For us, let's begin by not feeding that little fire of resentment. Let's listen to God, who tells us to resist the devil, and he will flee from us.